What if the greatest sign of power isn't when governments act, but when they stop?
You're listening You're listening to Pilgrims Grey Chronicles, top 3 stories of the week. The world's gone strange, but we love a good peek. From shadows deep to the global stage, we bring the truth from age to age. With harmony bold and a skeptical tone, we dig up the news they don't want known. So stoke the fire and have a seat. This week's top 3 can't be beat. Pilgrims Grey Chronicles.
All right. Thank you, boys, for the singing. Friday night, top 3 stories of the week. So, not only that question that I opened the show with, but what if peace treaties aren't written to end wars, but to start new ones in secret? And what if the explosions we see on our screens are not random? Not random accidents at all, but shockwaves from something stirring beneath it all. So tonight on Pilgrims Grey Chronicles, Robert Clark, your host, we're going to follow the thread that runs through all 3. A government shutdown that tests loyalty, a peace deal that rewrites the script of war, and a blast in Tennessee that rattles the heartland itself. 3 stories, 1 pulse. So stay with me, fellow pilgrims and travelers. Keep your feet on the road, your eyes to the horizon, because what we uncover tonight might change how you see the week that just passed and the world that lies ahead. Because it's just getting stranger and stranger, is it not? Stranger and stranger. And as you know, we like to delve into that weirdness, right? This is the seed war after all. So let's go ahead and kick it off and get into story 1 here, where the engine stalls, and they like it that way. Again, thank you, singers. Great job, as usual. So here, well, this isn't the one I wanted. So sorry. And of course, page unavailable. But I think it's this one. Yes. Beautiful. All right. So the thing is, the lights are off in Washington again, as we all know. But sometimes darkness exposes what daylight hides, right? So the 2025 government shutdown has now stretched past 2 weeks, leaving nearly 1 million federal workers without pay, halting agencies, and freezing countless programs. But here's the twist, if you want to call it that. Many of us actually cheer when the federal engine grinds to a halt, right? Because we've seen what happens when it's running at full throttle. Less government, of course, means fewer hands in the pie, fewer levers of control, and less oxygen for the parasitic bureaucracies that bleed the people dry, right? And yet, and this is where discernment matters, right? The powers that be, and I'm not talking about humanity here anymore, or human governments, but our little g gods that have been around since before the flood. Call them whatever you want. Fallen angels, rebellious little g gods, godlings, whatever. They've been around for a long time now. The ones that run this realm through their faithful servants in high places. And they know exactly how to weaponize even a shutdown to tighten their grip. So you have mainstream outlets calling it dysfunction. Markets call it uncertainty. But behind the headlines, this looks more like controlled demolition. So you have some 900,000 federal employees that were furloughed as non-essential, right? Proving just how bloated and unnecessary much of the system really is, right? And then you have the Bureau of Economic Analysis and Labor Department, who have paused key data reporting, meaning the elites really now have information the public does not. And then stock markets plunged after Trump's renewed tariff threats against China's rare earth elements, deepening this kind of artificial chaos. And federal contractors tied to the military industrial complex, well, exempted, of course. And it's really funny how that works, isn't it? They get the exemption. So to me, it's not chaos, it's choreography. What you're really seeing isn't just, it's not just political theater, it's spiritual engineering, powers, principalities. The shutdown is sort of a ritual pause, if you want to call it that, an economic Sabbath twisted by the counterfeit gods to test control. They love these moments because it lets them gauge how dependent the people have become. When the paycheck stops, the services vanish, and the markets wobble, they watch. And they measure panic, compliance, and desperation. Maybe because that's useful to them. It's a stress test of human loyalty to see whether our faith lies in God or in the systems built by those who rebelled against him. So when government halts, it reveals which institutions are truly autonomous, right? And which are mere limbs of a greater beast, if you want to call it that. Expect executive overreach framed as things like emergency action. You can expect private corporations to step in for relief, right? Deepening their merger with the state. And then you can expect digital systems to take the place of human ones, automated welfare, AI-driven monitoring, blockchain aid to make your life easier during these times. And each step makes the human population more manageable, more predictable, and ultimately more programmable. So these little g gods aren't shutting the machine down to end it, they're just rebooting it to get what they want in the long run. But in some ways, there's an irony here, and maybe divine humor, because every time the beast stumbles, even in a staged fall, cracks appear, right? Sometimes they overplay their hand like they kind of did in 2020. They still got what they wanted, but it woke a lot of people up. And in this case, every time they do this, people see how little they truly need government. Maybe not everybody, but more people wake up to it. And then families return to barter, local trade, church support, that kind of thing. And then communities rediscover independence. So if God's people use these moments to unplug, the shutdown becomes a weapon turned backwards. And the question is, will we use the break in the matrix to awaken, or will we wait for the next crisis to demand our obedience again? I hope in this regard we're becoming less and less obedient. I know that seems to be in violation of Romans 13, but it really isn't any more than the boys not bowing to Nebuchadnezzar. You have to have discernment. You can't just use Romans 13 as a blanket to comply with everything that governments do. So they think they've pulled the plug to reboot control, but maybe heaven pulled it to see who wakes up before the scream comes back on, right? Just because it's scripted and things are being done that are, a big theater for some other purpose that they're driving towards, doesn't mean you can't be discerning and utilize it to your own advantage or God's advantage. You just ask God for wisdom for how to see it, what to do, how to act, what to think in regards to these kinds of things. And you'll be way better off. So with that being said, let's look at the false dawn, right? When the world signs with shadows, our story number 2. So while the American engine is sputtering and its gears cool, the same hands that flip the switch here are signing papers overseas. That is this story here. Yay, yay for Gaza. When they pause one empire, it's never to rest. It's to rearrange the board, really. So, as Washington grinds to a standstill, world leaders have stepped to their podiums under brighter lights, announcing what they call a historic peace deal between Israel and Hamas. Brokered under U.S. and Gulf pressure, it promises ceasefire, prisoner exchanges, and humanitarian relief for starving Gaza. But every seasoned watcher of prophecy knows when the world shouts peace and safety, some sort of destruction is going to follow. And this looks like the optics of mercenary, but the machinery of power. So at face value, it looks like hope. Aid convoys moving, hostages freed, cameras catching handshakes under the, desert suns with perfect lighting. But beneath those images runs the same current of control we saw in the shutdown, right? The deal was drafted in secret weeks before the public announcement. Foreign intelligence services reportedly shaped the final language, not elected governments. Digital aid systems and humanitarian tracking programs are being embedded into the process, paving the road for biometric control of populations. Isn't that fun? And then even the timing during America's internal paralysis ensures no congressional oversight. Even more fun. So really, it's not diplomacy, it's design. But we're not paying attention mostly, so they get away with it. And again, our little g gods, we get peace by permission of the gods, right? In the spiritual sense, this peace isn't the stillness of reconciliation. It's the sedation of the battlefield. The same little g gods who feed on chaos also know the value of calm. They're way more smart than we are. I mean, even predators rest between hunts. And they stage ceasefires not to heal wounds, but to just shift alliances, move pawns, and recalibrate timelines. History's full of these false dawns, right? Nimrod's unifications, Nebuchadnezzar's decrees, Rome's pacts. Everyone bought time for empire to reorganize. I'm just saying that's one possibility here. So for the watchful, it echoes prophecy, right? 1 Thessalonians 5:3, they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh. And I think this is just the precursor for it. We're just seeing, the puzzle pieces all falling into place with a few more left to go. And the Middle East is the stage where celestial and terrestrial powers meet, right? Where the rebellion first took root at Mount Hermon and where it will end. At least here. I mean, I know it goes back farther than that, but that's kind of where the rubber hit the road here and it went into full swing. So when ceasefire agreements emerge in the same breath as government collapse, you can kind of sense the orchestration and a synchrony too exact for coincidence. So it's as if the rulers of this age are repositioning their pieces for the next great conflict, one they'll call peacekeeping, I'm sure. And it'll be the opposite. It'll end in the opposite. So why does it even matter? Well, global peace initiatives often centralize authority under a few unelected councils. And these deals exchange sovereignty for security guarantees. And humanitarian aid becomes data capture, mapping every citizen and refugee. And it's the same pattern, whether it's in Washington or Gaza, the consolidation of control disguised as compassion. It's like they never truly have anyone's best interest but their own at heart, ever. Even when they try to make it appear that way. It's really sad. And I hate to be that cynical, but I've just seen and read too much to not be cynical. And I feel embarrassed for not having recognized some of that early on. I wish that I had. So story 3, Shockwave in the Heartland, Nashville erupts. This is a story that, just kind of came across. I actually had a different story in mind, but I heard about this, and it's kind of local for me because I live in Tennessee, and I'm not that far from Nashville. In fact, I have a daughter that could have heard the explosion probably from where she lives up near Nashville. But anyway, As these world leaders signed their so-called peace, the ground here at home answered back, not with applause, but with thunder, right? I think I've got this one right here, maybe. Yeah, right there, folks. Um, and so, just hours after the ceasefire announcement overseas, a massive explosion ripped through Accurate Energetic Systems, a military grade explosives manufacturer southwest of Nashville, Tennessee. So the blast leveled multiple buildings, shook homes miles away, and left 19 workers missing or presumed dead. And officials say it was likely an industrial accident, but locals describe a shockwave they've never felt before, and a silence from federal authorities that feels heavier than smoke. So let's look at some of the patterns in the timing. This is kind of strange. The facility produces a detonation cord and high energy propellants used in weapons testing and mining, a crucial link in America's defense chain. The explosion comes as the government remains shut down, with oversight agencies like OSHA and ATF running skeleton crews. And then emergency response coordination was delayed due to furloughs, a grim illustration of how infrastructure vulnerabilities multiplies when Washington goes dark. Even without invoking conspiracy, it's fair to ask who profits from a weakened homeland at the very moment global tensions ease. And I'm not sure who yet. I'm still digging. But we do have industrial fragility, right? This event exposes something deeper than a single tragedy, the fragility of our industrial foundation, because for years, U.S. explosive and munition plants have run with aging equipment, minimal transparency, and heavy outsourcing of safety oversight. A government shutdown just magnifies every one of those weaknesses. And if foreign intelligence or cyber sabotage wanted to hit critical supply nodes, they couldn't have picked a better window. So whether it was an accident or an act, the result is still the same. Our defensive arteries are not healthy. So why did air traffic controllers briefly ground flights over parts of Tennessee minutes after the blast? And why were military base alerts briefly raised across the southeast the same evening? And why was the EPA refused, or why have they refused, to release chemical plume data? I mean, maybe that's all part of a routine precautionary measures, or they could suggest the blast wasn't as contained as officials claim, right? Either way, the story is being managed, not told, as usual. You never get the full story or truth up front. So while politicians abroad shake hands over fragile peace, America faces a different kind of battlefield, one of infrastructure, competence, and transparency. So no foreign army needed. Our weakness is internal corrosion. And that's what these little g gods of this age exploit best: human neglect, distraction, apathy, and pride. And, they always promise peace abroad while fire breaks out at home, right? Maybe heaven's reminding us that no treaty, no government, or machinery of man holds the world together. Only truth does. And truth as a way of shaking the ground, especially when you least expect it. So those are the top three of the week, folks. I guess we could end the program where we began, with questions, right? The government paused. The diplomat smiled, the earth shook, and through it all, you saw the pattern, you stayed on the road, and you didn't turn away. And that's what makes you part of this fellowship, the ones who still see through the smoke and the ones who won't trade truth for comfort. So if you felt that spark tonight, that sense that the dots really do connect, then keep the lantern burning, share the light, bring another traveler to the fire, subscribe and follow, and send this episode down the road so others can find their way here to the Pilgrims Grey Inn, because that's how truth travels, right? Not by force, but by those who choose to carry it. So we appreciate any support we get. And so until next time, I hope you all have a great weekend. Godspeed. And the road that goes ever on is right out there, out your door, and come travel by the end while you're walking it. Again, everybody have a fantastic weekend.